Well, thank God we're here. Thank God we are here to clean, spray, wipe that filthy stench off of us from Thursday night football. Jeepers creepers, what a game that was, huh? My God. Look, the Chuba Hubbard overhit. That's all I cared about at this point. I hit that multiple times throughout the day at different spots. I was like, if this son of a bitch doesn't get there, and I just watched 3+ quarters of garbage football, I'm going to be so mad. But it did, Greg. I turned it as soon as it hit. I just turned the TV off. I was like, all right, I've seen enough. That's all. It was did you watch any of that game?
I was watching basketball, but I did have, because I had a couple of bets for the game just pulled from Odd Shopper, because if there's something that's value that's popping up in our projections, I'm going to throw money on it. But I had no intention of watching that game whatsoever. It was totally dog shit on paper. And then also in reality. So I had Hayden Hurst over receiving yards. And then I also had Chuba Hubbard over receiving yards. They both won. Neither had any business winning. The Hubbard one, he didn't get targeted the entire game. They targeted him 3 plays in a row. One of them was a penalty. Yeah. And then same, Hayden Hurst caught a couple of passes in garbage time to get over. The receiving yards prop, it was Hubbard 10.5. And then I want to say Hayden Hurst was 13.5. So they were super, super low numbers that were projecting well for us. And yeah, that was my only rooting interest in the game.
Where did you get Hubbard at 10? The only place I saw that was PointsBet, and they allow me 30 cents.
Yeah, so PointsBet had it at 10.5. The opening line on FanDuel was also much lower, and then it got bet up over the course of the week.
FanDuel was 12.5 where I got it, and then it bounced to 14.5. But I mean, look, ultimately we'll take it. It doesn't matter. We'll take it. But Bryce Young stinks, man. Also, Frank, what's that?
He's terrible.
He's terrible. And to think that they had, and that Frank Reich and a lot of the management didn't want him. They wanted CJ Stroud. To see that now, I got to tell you though, the fact, I mean, it was crazy. Al Michaels spent 45 minutes talking about how Tyson Bagent could walk on his hands for 50 yards. That's how bad this game was, dude. They were him and Kirk Herbstreit looking for anything to pass the time. At one point, I was like, how's the family? How are the kids? And they just got into Thanksgiving plans, and that didn't happen. But it should have. And I'll tell you what, though. The fact, though, that Frank Reich, which makes no sense to me, Frank Reich was the offensive coordinator on the Eagles when they won the Super Bowl, when they did the Philly special. Now, I know it was Nick Foles that actually came up to Doug Peterson and asked him if he wanted to do that, but the lack of balls on this guy is incredible. And I tweeted yesterday, I was like, why are you punting? You're a 1-7 team at the 48-yard line. Why are you punting with less than a minute to go in the half? And someone was like, draft pick. Well, my friend, the team that they were playing against has their draft pick because they wanted Bryce Young. There's no excuse for that, man. It was the most cowardly brand of football I've ever seen. Ben said it on Tuesday. When you're a terrible team, why are you not taking massive, extensive risks, doing creative stuff every opportunity you get? You've got nothing else to play for.
I mean, they don't have any. Last night, this is, I think if you think about it, not really a hot take. Last night was the least consequential midseason NFL game I could ever remember seeing. Because it just didn't matter. Even these games where it's there's two really terrible teams playing against each other, you have the angle of, well, there's a draft pick at play. But not only do the Panthers not have their draft pick, the Bears had their draft pick. So the consequences from this game were completely non-existent.
Yeah, null and void on both sides. Amazing. Would have been smart at this point for the Bears to actually lose, but
or tie.
Actually, no, you're right. Well, no, the Bears. No. You want the Bears to win because the Bears have their draft pick. I forgot.
Yeah, they have their draft pick. They have the Panthers pick. I guess they wanted a tie.
Yeah, right. Right. That's it's twisting my head into. You're right. I guess a tie would have helped. I don't know, man. Anyway, we're back. This is the good thing. We move on from garbage football and we talk about more football. But the good thing is, at least on a main slate, you can have a bunch of bad games and who cares? Because you've got 10 games this week to choose from. 2 weeks from now, we've got Thanksgiving football. We're coming into the best time of the year for DFS, right? I mean, here's how I see it. Thanksgiving, some of the best time for DFS for sports, for gambling, for DFS. But what about the fact that this year you've got, I think there's 3 Christmas Day games? And then, as always, there's 5 NBA games on Christmas Day.
And don't forget about the Black Friday football game, which is
Yeah.
an incredibly dumb idea where it's just like, hey, you guys want for Black Friday a football game right in the middle of the afternoon, and a bad one because that's for some reason what the NFL has decided to do with some of these isolated games. We have what is it? Jets Broncos play 3 p.m. on a Friday.
I think, to be fair, yeah, it is 3 p.m. on a Friday. I think, to be fair, it's Jets Dolphins, which would have made sense with Aaron Rodgers.
Okay. So maybe
I think it is. I could be wrong. I think it's Jets Dolphins.
All right, let me check on this to see, because if you're right, then that is something that was better planned in advance than what I thought
it is.
Was.
Yeah, Jets Dolphins smack dab in the middle of the day at 3 p.m.
Why not make it a prime time?
I know. Marco said Thanksgiving's not always fun when you're done by 1 p.m. in the afternoon. You actually have to communicate with sad and depressed. While you're sad and depressed for not winning, you're not, dude. There's nothing worse than the 12 o'clock game going. Ben will talk your ear off about this. How every single 12 o'clock game just ruins the rest of his day. Remember the Adrian Peterson 3 touchdowns in the first half Thanksgiving Day game? I remember that. I was walking the dog before I went to see family. It's let me get the dog out for a quick walk. By the time I got back from the walk, my day was over. So it happens, but
yeah, we've got Thanksgiving this year. We've got Packers Lions at 12:30, Cowboys Commanders, which we have to watch this dumb Commanders team play more football games, and then 49ers Seahawks. So all together, not great games. But we do have individual good teams that are playing. They're just playing other bad teams as opposed to playing good teams.
Okay, hold on a second. Those aren't great. Packers Lions could be semi-fun, but Jordan Love stings. What are our Christmas Day games?
Right.
That's what I want to know. Christmas Day games are clutch, and they should do this far more often.
Christmas games for NFL this year. And here's also what I think the NFL should do, because this is what the NBA does really well. The NBA is good at putting together marquee teams against marquee teams.
For sure.
Which the NFL doesn't do. We have on Christmas for the NFL, the first game is Raiders-Chiefs. Then it's Giants-Eagles.
Jesus, what? This is Christmas Day?
This is Christmas Day, yeah. Chiefs-Raiders, Giants-Eagles, and then we do have a good nightcap, which is 49ers-Ravens.
That's a sick game.
Very good game. But compare that to... All right, I'm going to pull. I don't even know what the NBA games are this year for Christmas. I'll guarantee you there's better matchups than that, though.
Without question. I know the Sixers play. It's probably Sixers Bucks or Sixers Celtics or something. All
right, so the NBA games that we have on Christmas. First game is not great. First game is Knicks Celtics, Knicks Bucks. All right, admittedly, that's not a good game. Game after that, though, Nuggets Warriors, great game.
Sick game.
Lakers Celtics, also very good game. Game after that, Heat 76ers, pretty good game. Heat 76ers. And then the nightcap is Suns Mavericks, also really good game.
For sure. The problem is it's way harder. It's way harder in the NFL to do that anymore. There are not many good quarterbacks left. That's the problem. You can find marquee players, superstar players in the NBA, and pin them up against each other. Seriously, how many times can you do that in the NFL? Not that often.
Well, the other thing, too, the NFL is bad at is they try to predict which teams are going to be good before the season, and they always swing and miss. Last year, it was Broncos. Last year, it was Denver on half of the primetime games.
I think they had 8 primetime games. The Jets, it's kind of unfair. That happened. That sucks, right? But also, still, it's the Jets. They would have found a way to.
They'll find a way to be bad.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know, dude. Anyway,
they put the Giants on a ton of primetime games this year. Also,
they were the biggest fluke in the world last year. They've dealt with a lot of injuries and stuff, but I don't know. I'll get a nice Christmas present. It'd be a nice Christmas present for me, right?
Yeah, you watch Jalen Hurts will throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. He'll rush for another 2.
Yeah,
it'll be big for the Laufey household.
For sure, man. Anyway, you ready to talk some football?
Let's do it.
Week 10, baby. Taking a look at the Sims today. We love doing this show. I mean, if there's nothing that that puts you in the right kind of mindset and gets you looking at where the leverage spots are going to be now that we have updated ownership and everything. Being able to run the sims and look over this. Obviously, we'll inject our own thoughts as well. I mean, you and I are not afraid to say, all right, that's one of those spots where I might try and boost him, or I might try and get a little bit more closer to the field here, or even just, I might try and spread things out a little bit more because I don't want 80% of this tight end. That's fine. But it'll give us an idea of what, the highest simmed ROI lineups look like today. And we'll have some fun with it for sure. But before we do, take a single second, my friends. Atone for your sins here on a Friday morning. We're going into the weekend. Hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment down below if you're listening or watching after the fact. And never forget, all of our content available in podcast form, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, you name it, and any podcast exclusive stuff we do as well. Anything that only goes to podcast, 30-minute episodes is there. We did one on Tuesday. By the way, apologies for not doing the Friday afternoon slate. We didn't have ownership updated for the afternoon slate. We just actually couldn't do it because we have a process there. It's not like we decided afterwards, feel like doing something. We couldn't actually do the show, Greg.
We could not. So when we can, we do it. But if not, especially now that we've got basketball season starting. So, there's going to be days where the NFL slate doesn't start until Sunday, whereas the NBA slate, we've got one that happens Friday. Sometimes there's a lot of NBA news, just the data team that's going to be prioritized, getting all the NBA data updated, and football, while it's going to be updated on Sunday, sometimes like the afternoon specific slate might not be updated on Friday, which could prevent Waffy and I from being able to do that show sometimes.
Well, let's take a look, baby. All right. So we've got 10 games, some low totals. I'm not even going to mention it anymore. I might just keep it a running bit, Greg. It's like, 6 games under 40 this week, but it's become par for the course at this point. Doesn't matter. Tournaments are still huge. First place is still a lot of money. That's all we give a shit about. So let's talk. Let's look at the sims. What do we want to pull? Let's do this. Yeah, let's take a look at just the top simmed lineups. Greg and Eric and I looked at it a little bit on yesterday's show. It'll be a little different now that we've had some updates. Do me one favor here, though, Jacob. Go into stack type and to the left, stack type. Yeah, filter does not contain right side, right. Where it says contain, hit that and do does not contain. And then QB space +sign space 3. All right, good. I just want to see what. Go ahead.
I'll tell you when you didn't want to do this, though, was last week, because if you looked at the leaderboard last week, it was nothing but Texans triple stacks. And actually, a lot of people that were using this was probably the best week we had for the Sims tool was last week, because it was triple stacks dominated last week's slate, and a lot of stochastic logos at the top. But people, it was Texan stacks with Stroud, Colin. Like, you could have made quadruple stacks of the Texans that would have smashed last week.
We're going to go back to it. Don't worry. I just want to take a look at some of the ones without first.
Yeah.
And then we can reintroduce the triple stacks. Because a lot of these, the reason I want to do this is a lot of times you'll notice this too, Greg, where we'll have a quarterback that is like one of our highest stack exposures is this team, but it's almost all QB +3. And then if you remove that, then you start to see a ton of other quarterbacks jump up into the mix as like QB +1 and QB +2.
Yeah, for sure. And it does diversify a little bit. But yeah, there's times where it could be like, QB +3, like that's, a really difficult lineup to win with. And it is, because it takes a lot of correlation. But you get a game like last week where Stroud just goes absolutely crazy passing, and then everybody on the team went nuts, from Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Dalton Schultz. I believe that was, if I remember correctly, I think that was the stack that won the Millie last week, was Schultz, Collins, Tank Dell, and Stroud. And it was Utico that ended up winning. But
it was Schultz, Noah Brown, and Tank Dell. Yeah.
Noah Brown. Okay.
Yeah. It was a triple stack. But there were also a lot of single entry tournaments like 50K, 100K, those type, that were double stacked with CJ Stroud. They had the right run backs for Tampa, though.
Gotcha. Yeah, and it was Cade Otton, I think, was the was the run back who was in the winning lineups in a lot of them.
Yeah, Otton or Rashad White.
Yeah.
Those two guys. But no. We'll definitely go back to QB +3. I just want to look at some of these first to get an idea, and then we can see what some of those threes look like. By the way, that is the first time all season that a QB +3 lineup took it all down.
Yeah, and it's not going to happen all that frequently because the number last I had looked, I think it's only 1.2% of the field makes triple stacks. So you do get into some of these situations where, football, there's only 18 weeks in the regular season. And then if you think that only 1% of the field is doing, you have to think it's going to take you basically for that stack to be plus EV as a build, you need more than 1 out of 100 to win to beat more than the field. But if you think about it, that means if the stack wins once every, 5 years, it's like way plus EV because there's so few NFL slates. So it's, how often does it come to realize? So as long as you get like one of those every couple of years, it's a good stack. But yeah, it's not going to be all that frequent.
The problem is when it doesn't win, it usually gets wiped out.
Yeah.
Right. Now, like you said, all you need is one of those, and it's like, okay, well, nothing else matters now. But when those triple stacks don't work, they really don't work because you think about it hypothetically or realistically, you're taking up all 3 receiver spots or 2 receiver spots and a tight end spot with one team, and then likely a run back from the other side. So all the stars aligned in that game, 76 total points or whatever it was. I think 39-37. It was crazy for sure. But look at some of these top ones. Geno, totally understand the Geno +2s. This is an argument for a Geno +3 lineup. The question I have for you, though, and we know Washington can't stop the deep ball. Question I have for you is when you look at that last game, you had Noah Brown at 31. Well, Stroud at 62, Brown at 31, Dell at 53, Schultz at 42. When you start triple stacking teams like the Seahawks, who aren't, it's not like you're stacking Joe Burrow with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, even Boyd mixed in there, right? That's still an expensive triple stack, or any triple stack for the Eagles, assuming, say, Dallas Goedert was still healthy, and you've got Brown, Smith, and Goddard. With this, the average salary was so cheap. How do you do like when you're triple stacking a team like Seattle or a more expensive team? Do you think that is more difficult to do or easy to do because it's a better overall team with higher expectations of hitting?
So you need like a combination of things. You need not only for that team to be affordable. It's funny because you brought up the Bengals, because I was going to say if we're triple stacking one team this week, it actually would be the Bengals, because not only do you have a good quarterback, you also have injuries to the wide receiving core, which is going to open up more value at the wide receivers, easier to fit them in. So like Tyler Boyd, I think is a very strong play this week with T. Higgins now not expected to play. I do think Jamar Chase is going to play, but that's not definite. So we're going to need an update on that. But here's to answer your question. Generally, for a triple stack to be successful, you need a run back on the other side. So oftentimes, the value doesn't have to come from your stack of your team. It could come from the other side of the game, which is also something we saw last week in the Texans-Buccaneers game, where not only were there cheap wide receivers from the Texans that went off, but you had mentioned Rashad White on the other side of the game. He was a relatively cheap running back option that was one of the top scorers on the slate. We had Cade Otton, who had a good game at tight end as a run back on the other side of the game. He was also relatively cheap. So you need something to be cheap in there. It doesn't have to be from your stack, but either that stack or on the other side of the game as a run back.
Yeah, absolutely. That Bengals situation is mighty interesting going into this slate, especially because I bet them at -6.5. But Jamar Chase was limited yesterday. And then you had T. Higgins, who we had no idea what was going on with him. But now he's not expected to play. So if I had to guess, I would think that Jamar Chase is going to play.
That's my assumption as well. I'm assuming that, and Higgins, like now we're all assuming he's going to be out. That's what the reports are indicating. So if Chase is in, Higgins is out. We've got Chase, who looks like probably the best overall wide receiver option on the entire slate. Like if we didn't have to consider salary at all, we could pay up for anybody. Chase would be my guy as of right now. And then on the cheaper end, I'd probably go towards Tyler Boyd stepping up and seeing more targets in the absence of T. Higgins. So that just like naturally becomes a really good double stack to pair with Joe Burrow, especially when you consider that Joe Burrow's played so well as of late and finally looks healthy again.
He looks like an MVP, man.
Yeah, he does.
Copy paste date said QB +4 last week. Texans nuts in some tournaments, and then said QB +4 is psychopathy. Yeah, I don't envision myself getting to a ton of QB +4 anytime soon. Plus, it would have been Nico Collins, but I don't think Nico Collins would have been any bit of a difference maker, right? I mean, he had 14. That's pretty replaceable, and at that $6,000 or whatever price point.
Yeah, he was a solid option, but like he wasn't what set that stack apart.
Exactly. So Geno doubles. Okay, Mixon, Warren, Lamb, Metcalf, Lockett, McBride, Ferguson, Buccaneers. How do you feel about some of these double tight end spots? Like that top lineup has double tight end. The third one down has double tight end. So does the fourth one.
Yeah, so I've gotten a lot of questions about this, about our Sims tool on Twitter as well. And I'm getting to more tight end lineups, double tight end lineups, I should say. And here's the reason why, and why I don't mind that that this ends up being the case either. We used to have a much cheaper minimum salary for running backs. So we used to get these spots where you would have a running back who's a backup that became a starter that would be $3K on DraftKings.
You're right.
And almost couldn't miss. Like these were the easiest plays you can make in NFL DFS. Not only do we not have that low of a min salary at running back anymore, DraftKings is also way more aggressive pricing up these backups. So in a scenario where you have the starter out, the backup comes in, they're often priced at like at least around $5,000. And then at wide receiver, every once in a while, we get, somebody who's really cheap. That's a pretty serviceable option, but it's few and far between. We don't get that many times anymore where it's like, hey, in previous years, Tyler Boyd might have been a $3,100 or $3,000 receiver who you can just plug in as a best value play on the slate. Here's what hasn't changed. There are still tight ends that are $2,500 that may not project incredibly well, but they're serviceable. And when you don't have the same value available at running back or at wide receiver, oftentimes, if you're just looking at our projections, the best points per dollar plays on slates can be tight ends because the min salary is lower. And some of those guys who are starting tight ends that have a role, if you're $2,500 to be projected for 7 fantasy points, that's pretty solid from a points per dollar sense. So that's why I think we're getting to more double tight end lineups this season.
I get it. And you're right. They preemptively price all these backup running backs up. There was a time, I forget, there was one specific scenario that changed the way they did it. It was 2 years ago or so where there was a running back that went down. The backup was $3K and ended up being like 90% owned. And then ever since then, they took their foot off the gas a bit. But at one point, it was like Alexander Madison was 6,200 behind Dalvin Cook. Like all the backups were Boston Scott as the backup was $6,000. And it was crazy. It's not as extreme anymore, but yeah, that's a good point. Go to Jacob. Let's go to exposures. I just want to pull up stack exposures real quick before we look at these positions.
It was a Falcons running back, by the way, the year you're talking about. I can't remember who the player was.
Was it?
It was and the reason I remember,
well, you know what I'm talking about, right?
I know exactly what you're talking about. And that Falcons running back, not only was he the guy who may have ended up leading to the change in the pricing, but he also, I saw somebody post a winning screenshot from like an XFL lineup a few months ago, and that guy was in the lineup.
Really?
Yeah, I can't remember the player's name now.
Here, talk for a second about these stacks. I'm going to look it up.
Yeah. So if we're looking at some of the stacks that we're getting to here, and of the lineups that we do have selected, Dak Prescott, just getting to all of Dak Prescott this week. This actually might be the most rostered that we've had a quarterback the entire season when Loughran and I have been doing this show on a Friday, because of our top 150 lineups, and this is just of the top 50, we still have the QB +3s that are included in this. We have 12% single stacks of Dak Prescott, 18% double stacks, 10% triple stacks. So all that put together, north of 40% of our lineups are some semblance of Cowboys stacks. I do assume Tony Pollard is going to be involved in some of them. I'm sure CeeDee Lamb a lot, probably Jake Ferguson. Just going off the top of my head, that's who I'm guessing are going to be the 3 most rostered stack combinations with Dak Prescott. And I'm kind of at odds with some stuff with the Cowboys this week because we've seen the Cowboys win games very one-sided. game 1 of the season, we saw the Cowboys win by like 40 points over the Giants, and the starters didn't even have to play the entire game. They've got the same matchup against this same shitty Giants team that's even worse than they were in week 1, now that we've got Tommy DeVito at quarterback for them. So there is immense upside for Cowboys onslaught stacks, but I am very nervous that they are not going to play in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, the difference, though, is if they didn't play in the fourth quarter and the offense is what does all of the damage.
Yeah.
By the way, was it Brian Hill?
Was it Brian?
That's the only former running back in the XFL from the Falcons that I could find.
You know what? It actually was Brian Hill.
Was it?
Now that I'm thinking about it, I think it was, yeah.
What if in 3 quarters, though? What if they just go nuclear? That's why. Well, actually, do this for a second, Jacob. Click out of stack exposures. Go to running back exposures. This is what I want to see. I want to see how much Tony Pollard we have.
Yeah, 30%.
Like, I don't know how comfortable I am with Tony Pollard. Excuse me. I don't know how comfortable I am with Tony Pollard and Dak stacks this week.
It's tough, right? Because Tony Pollard is capable of being a pass catching. Pollard sucked this year, though. Everything that we've said negative about Zeke the last few years applies to Tony Pollard this year.
Does.
He's really sucked this year. And he's still capable of being involved in the pass in the passing game and in the running game. If he does not succeed this week, and I swore that I was done with Tony Pollard this year, unless there was like some sort of crazy scenario. And then you look at the schedule this week, it's like, all right, Tony Pollard's starting to get priced down on DraftKings and FanDuel relative to where it was at the start of the year. If he cannot succeed in the matchup against the Giants, which is going to have the best game script imaginable for a running back, when can he possibly succeed?
Oh, I get it. I just feel like I just feel like a Cowboys stack is leverage off of Tony Pollard.
It depends, because here's where I think it might not entirely be. First of all, I think that there is a chance that Tony Pollard could catch a touchdown pass from Dak. The other thing, too, is the Cowboys might beat down the Giants so badly in
that
this
everybody
game,
hits.
Where everybody, like, they might start every drive at the 50-yard line and they score all the touchdowns.
No, I totally get that. But, I mean, that feels like a lot needs to go right, because the defense also needs to not score defensive touchdowns, which we know they're very capable of doing. They're pretty opportunistic. Yeah, I don't know.
We never look at defense exposure here, and I don't really in the Sims tool either, because I just don't really care that much about it. I am kind of curious to see how much Dallas defense we're getting to, though.
Yeah, let's do that, and then let's see how much Dak plus go DST. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, not that much, 13%.
Let's see. Go back to lineups and go to lineups on the right. Filter. What do you think the best way? Can we filter lineup contain Dak and then add one and contain Tony Pollard? That should work, right?
Yep.
All right. And then add one, Jacob. And then let's see lineup contains Tony Pollard as well. All right. How many of them are there?
A lot.
See, I had a feeling that would be the case.
Yeah, so a lot of these Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Jake Ferguson. Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Jake Ferguson, and Tony Pollard. That's like your core of Cowboys players we're getting to.
How do you feel about it?
It's a lot. You need the Cowboys to go out and win this game. And also, if you notice that in stack types, we're not getting run backs either. So we are looking for just an obliteration. The Cowboys to just destroy the Giants, which we saw happen in week 1, and it still didn't really work. If this was a game that was on the main slate, it wouldn't have worked out for the Cowboys offense.
Not at all. Wasn't Tony Pollard really the only one to do anything worthwhile? The last time he's done anything worthwhile in that?
I think it was primarily the Cowboys defense. I don't even know if it was Pollard. I have to bring up the...
I think Pollard still had 20 or something. Pollard in week 1, he had 22. That's his best performance of the year. It's his only 20-point performance is week 1 against the Giants.
Yeah, Cowboys won that game 40-0, and Dak Prescott had 143 passing yards.
Yeah, no pass catchers got there at all. Pollard, I'd say, Pollard was fine, obviously, but it was the defense. Like, what did the Cowboys defense have? Because you're right, this was a showdown slate.
The Cowboys defense scored like 30 fantasy points.
They had 37.
Oh, my bad. I thought I remembered it being around about 30, and I way shorted them.
37. Jeez.
What were their stats? So they had what, like 2 touchdowns, something like.
So they had 7 sacks, 0 points against. They allowed 63 passing yards, and they had
2 touchdowns,
2 defensive touchdowns.
And how many sacks and fumble recoveries also?
One fumble recovery, 2 interceptions, 7 sacks, 2 touchdowns.
Crazy that Daniel Jones ended up getting hurt.
Yeah.
Daniel Jones hurt. Dak Prescott hurt. Tyrod Taylor hurt. And now we got Tommy DeVito at quarterback for the Giants.
God. By the way, that was why I wanted to look through. Like, Jacob, if you go back to exposures and do stack exposures again, let's see what the QB plus 3s are.
It's basically only Cowboys.
See, that's the only reason I wanted to get out of them for a second. I was seeing it earlier. Let's see what non-3s we have. You know what? I'd almost be more likely, if we're not running back, I'd almost be more likely to just go Dak plus 3 than Dak plus. Like, I don't want to go Dak plus 1. Because if it's Dak plus 1, I don't think Dak gets there.
True. Especially because they're not. Well, actually, it depends, right? Because we've seen some of these games where CeeDee Lamb gets all of the targets. So it could be one of these games where CeeDee Lamb has 180 receiving yards and Dak throws for 300, and it's just almost all to Lamb.
It's possible. I don't know. To me, it just doesn't feel like a 12 reception game from CeeDee Lamb. Like, I think if he gets it done, CeeDee Lamb does it on more limited opportunities. I don't see how the Giants score. We could look back on this. We could look back on this and go, wow, we were wrong. They're going to have to pull some real magic in New York to get this, accomplished, whether it's Tommy DeVito or Barkley. I don't think it matters. Do you know their implied total is under 11?
That 11 would seem high to me.
That's what Ben said on Tuesday too. Yeah. It's what's it at now? Let's see if it came down.
Like, how do they score twice?
I don't know. And if that's the thing, at 11, they need 2 touchdowns to go over.
Yeah.
Unless they get like a safety and a touchdown or a field goal,
Or 4 field goals.
4 field goals. That's in play. I don't know. Shit, man. Either way. Yeah, or even a touchdown and 2 field goals. But I have a tough time believing they get into any scoring territory more than once.
No, I've had Tommy DeVito, who's not an NFL player. He's an extra from West Side Story. The Giants have a total of something like 80 passing yards in the 2 games that DeVito has been the QB. It's
putrid. And even Daniel Jones at quarterback had 63 passing yards in week 1. Let's take a look at exposures. Before we do, though, we got a new partnership, guys, and it is a good one, particularly for you. Vivid Picks. You already know about Prize Picks and Underdog, right? And all of the Sleeper and Drafters, all these other pick'em sites that are constantly doing free squares, all have $100 first match deposit bonuses, except with Vivid Picks, exclusively through our partnership, not anywhere else. You're getting up to a $300 first match deposit bonus. That's huge because if you put $300 in, you now have $600 in your account. Even if you only have, say, 100, you're still getting 200. If you have 200, you got 400. But up to $300 first match deposit bonus is massive. Now, a lot of you guys, and by the way, they also have a $25 secure play as well. So that's especially good for those of you that may not have the ability to max this. $25 free play. If you lose your first play, you get it all back in site credit anyway, which is good. It's a pick'em site. You're taking the higher or the lower on any spots you like. I mentioned yesterday, loved Chuba Hubbard over receiving yards. I loved it. Odd Shopper loved it. It was just a match made in heaven. And you know what? It almost didn't work, but it did. So that's all that matters. If you're thinking to yourself, though, this is the key. If you're thinking, yeah, but I'm already on Prize Picks. I'm already on Underdog. I'm already on this or that. Why would I do another one? Simple. One, $300 first match deposit bonus. You're not getting that on Prize Picks or Underdog in any of these anymore. Two, it's the same thing as if you're a sports bettor and you say, I want to always get the best odds. Guess what? If you got the Panthers yesterday at +3 because you were too lazy to open up an account and shop on other books, you would have pushed. But there were +3.5s out there on multiple books. That +3.5 won you the bet because they lost by 3 points. Same thing with places like pick'em sites such as Vivid and all of these. The free squares that they're giving you every day, the better numbers, the better lines that you're getting every single day. Being on multiple, especially when you're getting these huge sign-up bonuses, is the deal maker. That is what solidifies all of this. Think of it through the same lens as if you were a sports bettor, particularly in non-legal sports betting sites like Vivid Picks right now and a lot of these other. Check it out. Links in the description and in chat. It's the only way we have the $300 bonus. So check that out if you're not there yet. All right. Anyway, want to take a look at some exposures here?
Yeah, and just one other thing that I want to add too about just in the interest of shopping to find the best plays anywhere is that Sleeper also has a line for this weekend for over 0.5 rushing yards for Josh Jacobs. So if it's just something else that you guys are looking to try to grow your bankroll, like this is just an easy one. If you aren't on Sleeper, you could sign up using the link below. If you're already on Sleeper, just make sure you take advantage of Josh Jacobs over 0.5 rushing yards because he's going to have at least one rushing yard.
All right. I love it. But again, that's the same thing. You're just maximizing every opportunity for these free squares. That's how you make money consistently and sustain a bankroll. So Sleeper's got one. Vivid Picks has the $25 secure play, $300 first match deposit bonus. It's a win-win-win across the board, baby. Links to all of them in the description and in chat if you're not there yet. All right, let's look at running backs. Let's take a look at running backs for a second. My guess is that we're going to have a lot of cheap running backs this week.
So a little bit cheating because we did have the running backs up on screen when Pollard was up before. So I did see what some of the other running backs were, but I didn't see who we have that's sub 30% in our lineups. We had three running backs that were 30+% owned. I didn't see who was below that.
Adam Bomb Mother said, well, there was that one game Josh Jacobs didn't get one rushing yard. Yeah, you're right. There was. If that happens again, it would be insane. Plus, they're going to have plenty of time to control the ball in a brutal spot between them and the Jets. All right, so Mixon 49%. Hey, I have a question for you. Let's switch to Brain Player for a second and not Sims Player. By the way, guys, you guys watching know this, but if you're new to the channel, this is our Sims tool. It's a contest generator, the Sims tool, all of it built into one. We did this so you can compete with the guys who know how to build these things on their own, because I'm not smart enough to do that. Greg just took down 100,000 with the Sims tool for NBA the other week. They work. Tom took down 70K or something the other day with the NBA Sims tool. They work. So
it was good. Not as good as me, which I made very clear to Tom, but it was impressive.
If you ever want to try them, though, the links are down there, or just hit us up, DM us, let us know whatever you're looking to do. There's something for everybody, lineup generator, rate or whatever, or just watch the show, just watch the show until you're ready to take the next step. But all of our tools and all our packages are included in everything. And, well, that's why we like doing this show. So we can show you guys what it is, even if you're not a sub, but I want you to detach yourself from the Sims for a second. Okay. What do you think Joe Mixon looks like if Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are both out?
Incredibly inefficient, but so many touches that it doesn't.
That's what I was going to say too.
I mean, that's what he's been the entire year, is crazy inefficient. Now, he is in a much better chance to do better moving forward than he was earlier in the year. Now, Mixon's not been a very efficient running back in the past, but we also have to keep in mind that we were starting the year with Joe Burrow playing on one leg. He was not effective whatsoever. So teams were really able to sell out to stop Joe Mixon in the running game because they knew that Joe Burrow wasn't going to be able to move himself. The Bengals weren't going to be very effective throwing the football. So now we have Joe Mixon, who's got a couple of things going in his favor this weekend. And there's no T. Higgins, so that could mean that there's more opportunities for him to run the football. But then also, Burrow's playing so damn good right now. The team is moving the football. It's going to be more red zone opportunities for him. And then also, teams can't focus as much on the run game. They have to focus more on the pass game, which should just make it easier for Joe Mixon to find lanes to run through. So with all that being said, he's going to be popular this week, but I don't mind it. I think he's a good piece of chalk.
For sure. I do too. I will say, though, Bengals, we just got 5 minutes ago from Schefter. Jamar Chase is back at practice.
Nice.
T. Higgins is out. I mean, I think, like you and I said, it seems more likely that Chase is in and that Higgins is out. And he was dealing with a sore back, and they're just like, hey, take all the time you need, right? Take all the time you need until Sunday. That's how I see it playing out. But I'm with you on Mixon. Inefficiency at its finest, but there should be a massive workload there. I can live with that. Where I start to get a little scared is the Madison and the Najee Harris. Scroll down a little bit, Jacob. Rashad White, I get it. The volume is there in the passing game. James Conner, assuming he's active. Singletary, that's also, with Pierce not playing. ETN, McCaffrey, only 6% McCaffrey. Another thing too is basically no Aaron Jones, I don't think. And Aaron Jones is a guy coming off a game where he had 6 targets and 20 carries. We have 3% well under the field. I don't know. I know it's not the best matchup, but they know they need Aaron Jones if they're going to compete.
Yeah, it's always really difficult to figure out what to do. And this has been going on for years. Ever since Green Bay drafted A.J. Dillon, you'll think this is the Aaron Jones week. And then out of nowhere, Aaron Jones is a big game, like you just mentioned, 26 touches or 20 touches, 6 targets in the passing game. And then all of a sudden the next week, it's like A.J. Dillon, we're at halftime. A.J. Dillon has 8 touches. Aaron Jones is 5. So I've never had the best success trying to guess what the Packers are going to do in the backfield. That's one for me where I'm just like, whatever the data tells me to do with the Packers running game, I'm going to listen to the data because I sure as shit can't figure it out for myself. As for Madison, I don't feel comfortable with Madison because of how shorthanded the Vikings offense is right now. But part of this too is Cam Akers being out. Madison might just be a crazy workhorse back where kind of similar situation where we're talking about with Mixon is what happens if everybody's out for the Bengals. We might have a situation where so many guys are out for the Vikings that Madison gets so much volume that it might not matter how inefficient he is. And also getting there with PPR points because of how much they also are willing to use him in the passing game.
I mean, at this point, man, this is just the inefficiency volume week for running backs. Look at this. Look at this. Madison, hell, throw Tony Pollard into the mix as well. He's got a good matchup. They're huge favorites, but he's been terrible. Najee Harris against Green Bay, right? Even Rashad White, this guy on the ground, efficiency is dreadful. What a weird week for running. Are there any running backs that can you sort by ownership, Jacob, projected ownership to the right side?
I thought you were going to say, are there any running backs who are good?
Well, that is a good question. Christian McCaffrey.
He's so expensive.
He's very expensive, but he's very good.
He is very good. His price point, what is it off the top of my head?
92.
92? Yeah, 92. There's not that much. So the running backs we have at the top, McCaffrey's 92, Eckler's 84, Kamara's 83, Barkley's 77. And I mean, Barkley, how can you expect him to do anything on the road against the Cowboys in this matchup? There isn't that much value on the board. Now, that could always change. We always get those big injury drops Saturday night from Rappaport, from Ian Schefter, where we just find this guy's out, this guy's out, this guy's out. Maybe that opens up enough salary savings to where it's easier to get up to these guys. But as things stand now, it is really hard to get all the way up to McCaffrey at $9,200. And he's popular. He's projected for 16.6% ownership. So to me, the opportunity cost of getting up to McCaffrey is he could score 25 fantasy points. And it doesn't even mean that much if there's no cheap guys to pair him with that have big games.
Do you have a preference among the highest priced guys from Eckler, McCaffrey, and I mean, Barkley's got to be 3, and Kamara. Let's just forget about Barkley for a second. McCaffrey, Eckler, and Kamara. Do you have a preference there? For me, it's probably Eckler. Eckler's not getting a lot of ownership.
So my answer on this is that if I was building lineups right now, I'd be underweight to all of them. So my preference is to not play any of them relative to the field. If I absolutely had to choose one, I guess I'd go McCaffrey just because he's the one that has the absolute slate-breaking upside that we've seen multiple times. But if I'd enter my lineups right now, I would be underweight to all of them.
Would you be comfortable being overweight on Najee and Madison? You already said Pollard, Joe Mixon. Just go living in that range.
Comfortable, no, but I also don't really care if I'm comfortable or not because,
for sure,
it's
I get that, but man, I think the most uncomfortable part is when you're getting the pairings of Madison, Najee Harris.
Well, I mean, there's lots of uncomfortable parts of it. We've got Christian McCaffrey is going to be chalk this week. And right now I'm kind of actively making the decision of, you know what? I know the field is playing Christian McCaffrey. You know what I'm going to do? Najee Harris.
Yeah, I'm going to play Najee. Yeah.
From that standpoint, I'm not going to be comfortable. But at the same time, too, I just don't know how to get up to these super expensive running backs. Where I really want to pay up is for the expensive wide receivers this weekend.
Let's take a look at wide receivers. By the way, take a second, hit that thumbs up, guys, if you haven't done so yet. And if you're not rocking the Stokastic avatar, what are you doing, man? Finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more using that avatar. Just go to stokastic.com/avatar. Download it. Use it wherever you play. DraftKings, FanDuel. Maybe you're one of our viewers that's been crushing over on Owner's Box recently because there's been a lot of them. Finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more. Could be the nickel. Could be the quarter. It doesn't matter. Your payout means nothing. You're getting a free month of all of our tools for whatever sport, whatever package you want, up to $200 value. Pretty good. Just tweet us at Stokastic HOF.
And no downside to either. You can only win. You can only win. There's no downside if you play with our avatar. The worst thing that happens is you don't win a tournament. The best thing that happens is you win, you tweet at us, and you get some free stuff.
Yeah, man. We have a lot of people that win like $75 in a big tournament with, low entry fee. And then they get all of our tools. And then they start winning and moving up in stakes. That's a nice little way to climb the ladder. You know what I mean?
For sure. You go from the nickel to the dime to the quarter to the dollar to, listen, those are big numbers. I don't know what comes next, but you keep moving up and then eventually winning everything.
Yeah, man. Start maxing the $3. Anyway, wide receivers. You want to pay up at wide receiver. That's okay. Rough Buffalo said, what if I tied for first with 10 others? No, you can't. It can't be a tie with I think you can tie with 2, but no more than that. We'd be out of business because of showdown slates.
Yeah. And for NFL main slates, you don't have to worry about ties anyway. Like, when's the last time you've seen multiple people tying for an NFL main slate?
I rarely, if ever, see that. It's happened, but it's rare. Nuke Hopkins, CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Keenan Allen. Well, you're getting what you asked for, brother. A lot of high-priced guys up there.
I think Will Levis is legit, by the way.
I don't think Levis is bad. I'd rather have him than Bryce Young at this point.
I'd rather have Tommy DeVito than Bryce Young. This means I didn't waste a number 1 overall pick on Bryce Young.
Now that I think about it, yeah, you'd probably rather have every other quarterback in the league.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy. So we're not getting a ton of Metcalf. How much Lockett are we getting, Jacob? 12. What about JSN? Is it 7? All right.
It's like a mix.
I'll be hitting the manual boost on the Seahawks. If they really are only like 8% owned individually, that's a spot. I know Eric said he's doing the same thing. That's a spot that I'm willing to get more exposure to. I would like to I want to be over the field there. I can live with the loss, but I'd like to be over the field Seahawks coming off a really bad loss to a Ravens team that is just running through every NFC opponent they faced. Lamar Jackson is 18-1 career against them. I think I'm okay with that. Going back home against the Commanders team that just lost Chase Young, that just lost Montez Sweat, who's made an immediate impact in Chicago, by the way. I have no problems with that at home. I would like to get a lot of Seattle.
And then something else that I want to ask you about that, though, is do you want to get more Seattle stacks or more of all these players? Because one thing you could do is you could ROI boost the individual players, just get more of them. Or if you only want them together, you could do an ROI boost for the Seahawks stack. So which is it that you want, or is it all the above?
I like all of the above. Yeah, I'm fine with either of that. Also, Ben mentioned it on Tuesday. I brought it up to Eric yesterday. I'll bring it up to you as well because it's an interesting talking point. The whole backfield situation there. Like if Kenneth Walker goes vastly overlooked because everyone's seen what happens in the last two games where he was injured before 2 weeks ago's game and then last week was out of hand before it started. Yeah, I wouldn't even be opposed to maybe having some Walker Metcalf or Walker Lockett lineups.
Yeah, it looks like we don't really have any. Like we have Charbonnet showing up in 3% of lineups. I don't think we had any Walker lineups.
Looks like it. No. I wonder what his project. I wonder what do we have Walker projected at ownership for?
I could pull it up over here. I know it's not much.
Like 6% or something.
I think it's even lower than that. The last I looked,
really?
I haven't looked since we updated it. Kenneth Walker. Oh, it's actually more now. It's 8%. So more than I thought. There are some people getting there.
Yeah. Seems reasonable. What about tight ends, Jacob?
I hate this position.
It's brutal.
Oh, a little bit of pride.
That's my guy, but that's a lot. Ferguson, Hawkinson. I do understand it. Do we have any Logan Thomas? No. Man, we are overloaded on four tight ends.
Yeah, it's Ingram, it's Hawkinson, Ferguson, Trey McBride. End of story. That's it. We're only getting to those four. Anybody else, we've got some guys who are thrown into lineups, either as they work with the quarterback as a stack, they work as a run back, but that's it. We've got like a really tight core that the Sims are saying are the guys to play this weekend.
I want to try one more thing. And if you have anything else you want to do before we get out of here, go for it. But Jacob, yeah, after you clear those filters, go to ROI boosts, go to stack boosts, and just negatively boost Dallas a bunch. I just want to see what else we get. Negatively boost them by like 50. You're not going to do this, but I just want to see. I want to see, Greg, what our other lineups look like.
Okay.
All right, now go to exposures and go to stack exposures. And QB +2. Really spread out.
Gino, Goff. Can you scroll down a little bit more, Jacob? Because, yeah, we've just got a whole bunch of guys who are showing up in like a handful of lineups then. But, yeah, super spread out.
It just shows you how high this Sims tool is ranking these Dallas stacks. Why do you think that is? Why do you think the Sim ROI on these is coming up so high for Dallas this week?
Because of the upside. So the way the simulations work, with it being a play-by-play simulation, it's taking into all the different possible ways the game could go. So we've got the games being simulated out and these lineups playing against each other 40,000 times. And if you think about which team has the highest possible ceiling based on all the possible outcomes, I do think it's the Cowboys. And also, if you think about how top-heavy NFL contests pay out and how also the Sims are going to be organizing our lineups based on, pretty heavily weighting what are those top 1% outcomes, which tournaments are going to win lineups. The one that you could see the path to victory towards being the most clear is going to be these Onslaught Cowboys stacks, because that's, a pretty realistic scenario where the Cowboys just end up absolutely torching the Giants and the offense scores a gazillion points.
Yeah. Giants might not have the ball for more than 10 minutes. Oh, anything else you want to look at before we go?
No, all good by me. Looks like lots of Cowboys and lots of Trey McBride.
For sure. And yeah, chat. No, I understand that the time of possession and ball control. What I just meant is that all of these guys are pretty popular. So it means that when you're looking and you're running these sims, despite them being popular, we still have them as under-owned pretty much everywhere.
Yeah. Significantly.
It's going to be fun. You guys, like I said, my DMs are always open. I think Greg's are too. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
but
they're open. It doesn't work sometimes. My DMs are open on Twitter, so anybody could message me whenever.
It's so weird. Ever since I changed my setting, no one's had an issue with it. I don't know what that is. But anyway, you ever have any questions about like the Sims tool or any subs or the lineup generator, which is our entry level? Great tool, less expensive than the Sims tool. But you ever have any questions before you sign up? Hit us up. Happy to answer. I know Greg as well. Always happy to answer questions, point you in the right direction. Remember, Vivid Picks, $300 first match deposit bonus. That's huge. Only through this link. If you were to go there right now, it's going to say 100. This link will take you to 300, plus the $25 secure play. Sleepers got the Josh Jacobs play this week, over a half a rushing yard. Some good stuff out there. Take advantage of it. But if nothing else, come join us back here tomorrow for the Tournament Strategy Show with Greg and Neil. And I'll be back Sunday, full out, massive stream I think we'll probably do the Germany stream again, right? That was fun last week. We're gonna run that back again with Bellman and Emac.
No, because we're switching the shows up this week. So we've got Bellman is going to be with Spags. Emac's doing like a marathon or something this weekend, and Josh is doing an NBA show on Sunday morning instead of the NFL show.
All right. This is how we'll close it out. Ace of Spades, DK tiers, best options. Thanks again, Greg. You should be thanking me, Ace of Spades. You should be thanking me. Go ahead.
Tier 1. So tier 1, which is dominated by quarterbacks this weekend. We've got Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, CJ Stroud. It's got to be the Bengals for me. And this is assuming that Jamar Chase ends up playing. And we've got T. Higgins already not expected to play. But if you look at the top stacks we have at Stokastic.com, and we've got the Bengals with a nearly 20% chance of being the highest scoring team on the slate. So I really like Bengals stacks this weekend. Give me Joe Burrow in tier 1. If we go into tier 2, this one's really close. We've got Keenan Allen, we got CeeDee Lamb, we got Amon-Ra St. Brown. There's a lot of downside with CeeDee Lamb if the Cowboys just win in an absolute onslaught. But with that said, CeeDee Lamb's got to be my guy to go to in tier 2. He projects really well. And then also this is a spot where we can make Cowboys onslaught stacks within tiers, which is why in tier 3, I also like Tony Pollard. So we can go Tony Pollard in tier 3 with CeeDee Lamb in tier 2. Tier 4, I like Brandon Ayuk the most. Tier 5, Dak Prescott. He's the top projected player by a pretty wide margin in this tier. And then also we could combine him with CeeDee Lamb, with Tony Pollard, who we had in the other 2 tiers there. So we're getting some correlation, which is important for tiers to find upside. It's important for classic DFS contests. I don't know how often people consider that you want to be correlating your lineups in tiers. It's going to be Dak Prescott in tier 5. Tier 6, that is going to be Chris Olave for me. Tier 7, DeAndre Hopkins. And then tier 8, Terry McLaurin. Oh, my God. Love him. I never talk to me again.
Oh, we're done?
Oh, yeah, we're done.
Okay. Hey, appreciate you guys hanging out as always. We will catch you back for the next one. We love you guys. This is a fun show to do, as always. And follow Greg at G Ehrenberg DFS, me at Laffy_D, LOUGHY_D. And shout out to Jacob for always doing an awesome job producing this one. It's a heavy lift for sure. So thank him in the comments. He deserves it. See you back here soon. Peace.